Let me share something that many in the music industry are quietly discussing, but few are willing to voice openly. While the nation was caught up in debates about Bad Bunny's presence on the Super Bowl stage, another, more subtle and potentially risky conversation was taking place. This one revolved around three women: EJAE, Audrey Nuna, and Rei Ami. These artists, part of the trio Huntr X behind the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack, were the voices that caused a sensation online and turned a Netflix animated film into the most-watched movie ever. They were hinting that the Super Bowl performance didn't unfold as planned. Once you learn the complete story, you'll see why the music industry has been behaving a bit strangely ever since. Welcome to Pop Showroom, where we bring you the stories behind the headlines. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now, because this story goes deeper than anything you've seen in the mainstream media. Let us go back to the beginning, because this story does not make sense unless you understand just how enormous K-pop Demon Hunters became. When the film dropped on June 20th, 2025, nobody was ready. Not the studios, not the streaming platforms, not the music charts, and definitely not the culture at large. Within a month, it became the most-watched animated film in Netflix history. By September, it had crossed 314 million views. Every single original track from the soundtrack charted on the Billboard Hot 100, with 6 songs cracking the top 100 simultaneously. Their song Golden became the first #1 hit by a female-led K-pop group on that chart, ever. Think about that. Not just a hit, not just a viral moment, but a genuine historic achievement. Novak Djokovic was doing the Huntr X dance moves after winning at the US Open. Dads who had never listened to K-pop a day in their lives were humming soda pop in the grocery store. The world did not just like K-pop Demon Hunters, the world was obsessed. And at the center of all that magic was EJAE. This woman had been a behind-the-scenes titan in the K-pop industry for years, writing and producing for aespa, LESSRIFIM, Twice, NMIX, and more. But it was the Demon Hunters project that finally brought her voice to the front. EJAE joined the project back in 2020, almost 5 years before it hit the world, and she spent those years grinding through the music with the directors, crafting demo after demo, some sequences requiring nearly 60 different versions before anything clicked. She was not just a feature or a guest vocalist, she was the musical soul of the entire film. And now, suddenly, the whole world knew her name. So when Bad Bunny was announced as the headliner for the Super Bowl 60 halftime show, the reaction was immediate and it was loud. The NFL had chosen the Puerto Rican reggaeton superstar to make history as the first predominantly Spanish-speaking artist to headline the biggest stage in American sports. On one side, conservatives and MAGA voices were furious. Trump called it absolutely ridiculous. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem threatened that ICE agents would be all over the Super Bowl. A petition to replace Bad Bunny with country star George Strait collected over 120,000 signatures. The White House press secretary said the president would have preferred Kid Rock. It was a whole circus before a single note was ever played. But here is where things get interesting. The day after Noem made her comments, Bad Bunny walked out on the Saturday Night Live stage as host of the season 51 premiere. And what did they do that night? They made a full sketch dedicated to K-pop Demon Hunters. Not just a passing reference, not just a wink at the audience, but a whole skit where Bad Bunny played a character named Thomas, a grown man with no kids who was dangerously obsessed with the animated film. His friends in the sketch thought he was being ridiculous. They wanted to talk about prestige movies and serious topics. Thomas could not stop talking about Huntr X and their songs being weapons against demons. And then, right there on live television, EJAE, Audrey Nuna, and Rei Ami appeared in a thought bubble above his head and began to sing Golden. The crowd went absolutely wild. And then, at the climax of the sketch, when all seemed lost, Bad Bunny threw his hands to the sky and screamed that he could not help them, but they could, and the three women walked out onto that stage in the flesh and performed Golden live for the very first time. It was a moment people were not expecting that night, and it stopped everyone in their tracks. But underneath all the celebration and the viral clips and the fans screaming, there was a tension building because the girls of Huntr X, specifically EJAE, were starting to talk. And what they were hinting at was not just tea, it was a statement. The suggestion that started floating around, echoed by fans and insiders alike, was this: they were supposed to be at the Super Bowl. Not as guests, not as a cameo, as the headlining act, or at the very least as a featured centerpiece of the performance. The music coming out of the KPop Demon Hunters universe was the biggest sound in the world at that moment. Golden was the song of the year. It was nominated at the Grammys alongside Lady Gaga, Kendrick Lamar, Billie Eilish, ROSE and Bruno Mars, Bad Bunny himself, Sabrina Carpenter, and Doechii. That's not a small deal. That's the most elite room in music, and Huntr X belonged in it. The idea that the NFL through Roc Nation and Jay-Z made the call based on global reach and cultural moment makes complete sense on paper. Bad Bunny was the most streamed artist on Spotify in 2025. He had just completed a historic 31-show residency in Puerto Rico. His album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos, was a critically acclaimed, Billboard-topping piece of art. Nobody was going to argue he didn't deserve the stage. But the argument being made in certain circles, the one that EJAE and the girls around her were implying with every interview, every comment, every knowing pause, was this: the real cultural moment of 2025 was not just Bad Bunny, it was the K-pop Demon Hunters phenomenon, and the face of that phenomenon was them. Think about what happened at the SNL sketch. The three of them walked out and performed one song, just a piece of one song, and the audience reaction was so electric that it made headlines for days. Their first complete televised performance of Golden had to happen 2 days later on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, because they hadn't even been scheduled to perform on SNL in the first place. They showed up early, they couldn't wait, and when Fallon handed them a framed platinum album on live television, the crowd went silent for a second before erupting. That's not the reaction you give to a soundtrack act, that's the reaction you give to something that changed your life. Now fast forward to February 8th, 2026, Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, Super Bowl 60. The New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks are playing, but everybody knows the real show is at halftime. Bad Bunny steps on that stage, and what happens next is a 13-minute spectacle that the world immediately splits into two camps over. His fans, the Latino community, progressives, and music lovers, called it a joyful, powerful, historically significant celebration of Puerto Rican identity and the contribution of Spanish speakers to American culture. There was a real wedding on stage. He handed his Grammy to a young boy in the crowd. Ricky Martin came out and performed an acoustic version of a Bad Bunny song about protecting Puerto Rican culture. Lady Gaga appeared. It was cinematic and bold and deeply personal. But the critics were just as loud. Trump called it one of the worst Super Bowl halftime shows ever. Republican congressmen were writing letters to the FCC demanding investigations. Conservative commentators were calling it inappropriate, too foreign, too political, too much. A whole counter-programming event was staged by Turning Point USA, with Kid Rock headlining, broadcasting as an all-American alternative for people who didn't want to watch Bad Bunny. ICE officials were reportedly present at the stadium. The White House was watching with fury. And somewhere in all of that noise, EJAE and the rest of Huntr X were watching too. And the feeling in the air, the one that their supporters in the industry were picking up on, was that a chance had been missed. Not because Bad Bunny wasn't great, he is. Not because the performance wasn't significant, it was historically important in ways that will take years to fully understand. But the specific cultural energy of that exact moment, the thing that teenagers and adults and athletes and dads and the New York gay men's chorus were all doing the same dance and singing the same words in a language some of them didn't even speak, that energy had Huntr X written all over it. Golden was the song of that year in a way that crossed every boundary. K-pop fans loved it, pop fans loved it, people who had never cared about animated movies loved it. It was universal in a way that very few songs ever managed to be. And the argument from EJAE's camp was simple and quiet and devastating. They were supposed to be there.
It was not about bad blood. It was not about tearing anyone down. EJ and Bad Bunny had literally been in the same SNL sketch, laughing and performing and lifting each other up just months before. But there is a difference between being recognized and being chosen. There is a difference between appearing in someone else's thought bubble and having your own spotlight on the biggest stage in the world. EJAE had spent 5 years building the musical foundation for a cultural phenomenon. Audrey Nuna had poured her voice into a character that millions of people fell in love with. Rei Ami had helped create something that transcended animation and became a way of life for an entire generation of fans. And when the biggest night of the year came around, they watched it from wherever they were watching it. What makes this whole story sting even more is the context. The same conservatives who were losing their minds over Bad Bunny performing in Spanish would have had even more problems with 3 women of Korean and Asian descent dominating the Super Bowl halftime show. The NFL's calculation was about global reach, yes, but it was also about navigating a political minefield in a country that was actively deporting people at record rates and arguing about who belonged on American soil. EJAE, Audrey Nuna, and Rei Ami, 3 women whose voices had just delivered the biggest soundtrack in Netflix history, existed in a cultural conversation where their presence on the biggest American stage would have been its own kind of statement, its own kind of storm, its own kind of history. And maybe the NFL did not want that conversation. Maybe the people making the decisions decided that one battle was enough for one night. But here's what the streets know, what the fans know, what anybody who has been paying attention knows. You cannot separate the Super Bowl moment from the KPop Demon Hunters moment. They are the same moment. Bad Bunny was up there on that stage, in part because the culture was already in a place where something unexpected and genre-defying and boundary-pushing felt possible. EJAE and her group helped create that place. Golden cracked open a door that the whole music industry walked through, and when the moment finally came to step through the biggest door of all, somebody else got to go first. That is not a small thing. That is the kind of thing artists remember for a long time. That is the kind of thing that shapes the next 5 years of a career. And EJAE, whether she says it out loud in every interview or not, knows exactly what she built, and she knows exactly what she did not get. The story is not over. The Grammys happened. Golden was on that stage as a nominee. The world knows the name Huntr X now in a way it did not before the Super Bowl conversation even started. And the next time there is a conversation about who should be on that halftime stage, who should be carrying the biggest cultural moment of the year, you already know which names are going to be in that room. EJAE is not going away. She's just getting started. And the fact that the conversation about who should have been there even exists at all tells you everything you need to know about how powerful she and her group actually are. The wrong guy did not get chosen because he wasn't talented. He got chosen because sometimes the machine moves slower than the culture. And the culture was always already moving with the Demon Hunters. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation, so please share your opinions in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on this story.